All right, so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase this amp that I just assembled. It's based on a twin reverb to a certain degree. The preamp is the vibrato channel of a twin reverb minus the reverb and minus the vibrato. So how can that still be the vibrato channel? Well, the answer is simple. I'm still using the third triode that is added to the vibrato channel, which in my opinion is what adds the specialness of that channel. If you go in the normal channel, to my ears anyway, it just sounds lackluster and kind of bland. But when you add that third triode, it just makes the amp sound, I don't know, a little more special. Anyway, this amp has a Marshall Super Bass power section though. So it's running 4 EL34s and running at a decent plate voltage, about 462 on the plates for those techies out there. Apart from that, I've added a master volume circuit, but other than that, the preamp is totally stock, and I made sure I added all the loading that is also in the actual twin reverb vibrato channel, so it can be as accurate as possible. All right, the controls are simple: volume, treble, bass. And why did I do that? Because I kind of like the tweed layout of the early Fenders. So just to be silly, I put the bass here. Then I added a mid-range control. And here is another place where I did do something different. The normal mid pot on a Fender Twin Reverb is 10K. What I've done is I've made this a 25K. And what that allows me to boost the mid-range more, and it can get the clean amp to grind a little bit, and I'll show you that later. The other thing that I've done is I added a master volume control. This master volume control is right in between the third triode and the phase inverter circuit. It's a 1 meg ohm audio. And then lastly, because it is a Super Bass Marshall power section, I added the Super Bass 5K pot, so it has the DC across it. That's why it's scratchy. But in my opinion, that's to my ears, that's the best sounding presence circuit. And I'm running it at noon right now, and it's a standard 0.1 presence capacitor. The capacitors are all orange drop 7/16Ps, with the exception on right as the feed of the master volume. I used one of those new Sozo blue capacitors, supposed to simulate the original blue Ajax capacitors, I think. Forgive me if I don't remember correctly. But that's the only place I didn't use a 7/16P. Everything else is 7/16P orange drop. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to simulate just the standard, if you plugged in a twin reverb, and here's, the other important thing is I'm running it in this Avatar oversized open back. It has a small, oval port on the back side of it, near the bottom. It's a really full sounding cab, punchy. I really like this cab. It's one of my favorite single 12s ever. And the speaker I'm using is a Jensen Blackbird Elnico 100-watt speaker. And for most cases, it'll be more than sufficient to handle the power of this thing. If I'm running really loud, then I'll just add another 112 to make sure I don't blow anything. All right, here we go. Standard twin reverb settings. Volume's about 2, treble about, I'll put about 2 o'clock, which would be about, that would be 5, 6, around 7. Middle around 0, 1, about 2. Bass about 1. I have the master volume full blast so that it's out of the circuit, and like I said, presence at 12 o'clock. So I'm just going to switch through the pickups. That's the number 4 position. Here's the number 5 position. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the master volume control. We'll put that at noon, and it's going to drop the volume significantly, but I'm going to turn up the volume control. What that does, it allows a little more signal to go through the preamp section. Makes it a little richer. It's still very clean, but now it's richer in my opinion. Again, just standard twin reverb tones, beautiful tones. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's really cool about this amp with this master volume control and the mid-range control. I'm going to make it grind. So I'm going to turn the master volume down all the way. I'm going to turn the volume all the way. Okay? But if you leave this with mid-range where it is right now, it's still really clean. Turn the master back down, and I'm going to crank the mid-range. Just for the sake of testing, I'm going to crank that mid-range all the way. So what it's doing is putting 25K from ground and letting much more of that signal go into the rest of the circuit. And I can modulate how much volume with the master volume. Single coil mode on this guitar, and so now I'm going to push this down, and it's going to give me a humbuckers, okay, full on humbucker. So now what you can do with this amp is you can play a a gig where you don't need a lot of overdrive, but just enough, and you can modulate how much clean with the volume control. Now you can go. Modulate that.